Greetings, my fellow freeloaders, sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3-Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Saturday, February 22nd, 2025. This is episode 1811. Constitution, Dictatorship, and Warring Sons to a Common Father. Before I proceed, you can follow me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Loki Luck number 3, Loki Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or the Loki Luck Roman number 3 podcast. Furthermore, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, etc., wherever you do, please use decorum. Hit me at LL3-Podcast at proton.me. If you don't donate, go to PayPal.me or cash.app/Loki number 3. Or not, you do the crypto love at Steemit at LL3-Podcast. You can find me in multiple areas as well. That was aforementioned to be exact. Well, on this day, 1732, George Washington was born, the first president of the United States as a Constitution Republic. Interesting. So, hope everyone's out there doing well, surviving, not getting caught in the social media political activist bandwagon. Yeah. It is real comical when you think about it. All the Trump-hating cult members out there are spewing their rhetoric, posting anything pertaining to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So much animosity. Yep. Cult members. Of course, we got the Trump supporters, too, that believe he does no wrong. And that, to me, that's irrelevant, too. So they're part of the cult family, right? The cultist family. It is funny, man. Some people hate when I make certain comments. They had one about Elon Musk is a fraud. There's a lot of claims, I'm not going to refute it, but they did it. They do this out of convenience. Remember, the past administration, a lot of these experts were completely silent. What's convenient for me? I'll do it when it's someone I despise. Yeah, I'm a real American. I am following my duties right now. Come on. Grow up. I'm convinced that many of these individuals that have those attributes enhance their adulthood by watching Chris Elliott's TV show on Fox. It was only out for a few years. Get a Life. Remember that show? If you're on my demographics, a 30-year-old man being a paper boy, childlike, juvenile. It was entertainment, not the life he should lead us to. It is hilarious. Don't get me wrong, my friends. I just really get a big kick out of it. People that know me for a very long time, understand I'm consistent when it comes to politics, geopolitics. I'm no expert myself and boldly admit that. But always, I love to observe responsibly. We should all have those duties. Don't just take anything face value. But many people have devoured it. Get it? Hook, line, and sinker. It's like, drink that Kool-Aid and join the Jim Jones Jamboree, right? Oh, yeah. So I was watching the actual press conference of the J6 prisoners that were on D.C., which happened yesterday. And it was overall was good. Of course, you have the glamour people out there, like can't even wipe their own ass, but going to try to tell you how to live. They're out there. Pathetic that they are. Delusional clowns. Yeah, I live in D.C. Oh, you're a delusional clown. Okay. But overall, it was a good press conference. Enrique Torrio put his views in, and many others. Stuart Rhodes. I think a lot of folks in there. And one of them, they talk about people are in prison for drugs and never got a fair trial. They're in there for 30 years. So I'm glad that was brought out. And many other political prisoners before J6 needs to be addressed. A la Schaefer Cox is one of them. This whole war on terror has been further executed, which I warned many people about this when it first was announced the week after the horrific event on September 11, 2001, when George W. Bush brought the State of the Union address on the war on terror. Told many people it can be executed against its people. J6 is just one example, my friends. That, the Patriot Act, the NDAA, on and on and on. It's just steps. This is why eternal vigilance is the key to liberty, Thomas Jefferson once said. And it was never an insurrection. They had one person who was an ex-Green Beret, and he was an attorney. Called out some of the credential media about how they went for the official narrative and executed it hook, line, and sinker. I don't blame them, because there are a bunch of candy asses out there. Meek and pathetic individuals that don't want to do their job, but what's fed to them. Okay, I'll show it to everybody else. So, I do have to give them credit, and even Enrique Tarrio, people still buy that Proud Boys are white supremacists and Nazis. Grow up. Stop being a bunch of juvenile hacks. Learn to be a sentinel instead of a faction slave. You got a lot of them out there. Follow the herd. Red, blue, moo. We should be wearing cowbells around our necks, right? With those colors. The peasants out there. The geniuses, the experts. It is absolutely ludicrous. Think for yourselves. Study the U.S. Constitution. For starters, in these United States, civics and all that. So you got technology, utilize it. Not what's on CNN, all these fashion stations. It looks like more stuff on Doge. And people still bitch about Elon Musk, but other presidents in the past used people who are considered outsiders. But that's okay. What's convenient for me, right? Like I said, faction slaves. Kash Patel confirmed as FBI director. Yep. And so did Tulsi Gabbard. Some people ask me about it. I go, let the action speak for itself. Even with deep state provocateurs, right? If they only get the low-hanging fruit, don't be shocked. Don't get offended. It's nothing new. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And we got here, too, NTD. Federal judge vacates trial for New York City's mayor but doesn't dismiss charges. Heard that was a sham. We all have our reservations. I know the mayor and the borders are actually going to work together on the illegal immigration in the Big Apple. So they want to toss him under the bus as usual. He was a police officer too, so they had things in common. Information liberation is removed to seize Armenian pirates of Jerusalem's properties after saddling them with bogus taxes. Yep. So you gotta say, I support Israel. I support their government. Hey, far as I'm concerned, the Israel the Christians actually talk about in the Bible, it's more of a spiritual thing, not a physical. If you're offended by that, I don't care. So that, and of course, from modernity, what happened to the village where migrants outnumber locals, end of the American dream a couple of days ago, 22 really bizarre facts about the most Orwellian society on Earth. Good to know these things. And from Free West Media, Ukraine was betrayed long before Trump. And I have to agree on that. Folks, I suggest you guys read Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, The Grand Chessboard. And he wants to use Eurasia, have the American hegemony over Eurasia. And of course, he brought out about Ukraine was the pivot in that territory. He who controls Eurasia rules the world. I'm just paraphrasing. Reclaim the net. Brazil bans Rumble. Yeah, because truth coming out too much. I guess they didn't like what was that one gentleman's name? Oh man, I'm just like I'm a little bit tired. Forgive me, but getting ludicrous as usual. They're wigging out with their Marxist agenda, totalitarian agenda in Brazil. We gotta control everything. Yeah, their New World Order is being wiped out. The truth really hurts. Yeah. So I got that. Leave me alone. Yeah. So that's what's been happening. And one gentleman down there, is Greenfield? It may be Greenfield. I may mispronounce it. Been doing reports on what's going on over there. And of course, I've reclaimed the net. Ireland police fails to obtain journalist data from X. Good. I like that. Regardless of what you think about Twitter or X. I like it. Too many. You see too much police state around the world. Trump confronts Maine governor over executive order on transgender athletes. See the video clip of that. Oh, I'll take you to court. You know what? Here's the thing. He can do the executive order, but the House can do approval of freezing those funds. Article 1, Section 7 of the U.S. Constitution. It looks like Donald Trump has done that. Is doing that. He learned from it from the time with sanctuary cities. And I did a show on that many years ago on Spreaker. And of course, I did brought up how Texas started spearheading the sanctuary cities in their state. And they see I do everything on a state level. But with this one, Article 1, Section 7 of the U.S. Constitution, the House are the originators of revenue. And of course, Senate shall concur. All news pipeline. Stacey Abrams popped up again this week in what's looking like a textbook case of political scamming. And remember, she ran for governor. She wanted to seize firearms. That's treason in the state of Georgia. Natural news. Trump administration secures historic U.S.-Mexico military border patrol agreement. So it looks like there's a deal that has happened. Nothing really new to be exact, but a lot of insanity is going on. Even with the Boer genocide in South Africa, the farmers, that needs to stop. I know there's people who are black in that area too, saying, "What are you doing?" So they're not that stupid. So zero hedge, Doge to expose real gold price, and right down here, federal file libs riot over RFK Jr. investigation, SSRI safety. Yeah, they all getting kickbacks, right? Allegedly speaking. Of course, big league politics, disgrace, former special counsel, Jackass Smith, received $140,000 in free legal services before resigning. Another scumbag, I'm sorry. These people, I'm not impressed, okay? When it comes to government, you never get so lovey-dovey. And Middle East Eye, post-Trump political climate fuels alarming surge in online hate. We are changed. Sickness 2.0 is the next PSYOP. Sickness 2.0 is the next PSYOP. The establishment is prepping to release viruses. And daily reckoning. America First era begins. Always got to stay on top of it. And herbs.news. And Chenchasia, the immune boosting powerhouse with a rich history, which is good stuff, folks. I need to get back into that. Remember, every infection has an Achilles heel. So it's always good to know these things. And let's look at here. Oh, yeah. Well, that will be it here. Well, wait. Oh, this one here. Antiwar.com. Netanyahu orders West Bank escalation after empty buses explode in Israel. I wouldn't be surprised if it's done by design, allegedly, under Netanyahu. I'm being fair. And right here, Walt says Trump is frustrated with Zelensky over lack of rare earth deal. Well, Walt can't even wipe his own rear end. He's nothing more than a treasonous scumbag in his own state of Minnesota by letting the rioters burn certain areas of that city to the ground because he had his National Guard stand down, which he is, I tell him he is an insurrectionist. That's right. So all you folks out there think he's a good man are not more than delusional hacks. That's one of the reasons why that Harris Waltz ticket was strongly defeatable. It was weak, pathetic, and unmerited. All right. Well, enough of my ranting here. I'm going to do a couple of articles from Mises.org. And this is from The Wire. Constitutional Dictatorship. This is by Thomas J. DiLorenzo, which I have met him. Bought a couple of his books at a function he did, which it was presenting how capitalism saved America. Good little booklet. Yeah, Thomas J. DiLorenzo, now he's the president of Mises. So, good. I think it's great. Well, see what he has to say here. When President Trump recently began calling the Ukrainian dictator a dictator, elements of both left and right in the Washington establishment became quite indignant over it. After all, he is the poster boy for their beloved foreign aid. The Ukrainian constitution allows for the suspension of elections during wartime. Shout it. The Great One, which is GRATE. All right. Mark Levin of Fox News. Levin then gave the Ukrainian dictator his full-throated support since, after all, a piece of paper was written by his government gives him such dictatorial powers, said the self-professed constitutional scholar. The reason why I'm laughing, because I can't argue with Mr. DiLorenzo on this. Mark Levin is a glam boy. Okay? I remember when George W. Bush was in there, he said, we got to have the draft and this and that and being globalist, and I digress. However, when Obama and even Biden goes in there, we got to save our Constitution. This guy is a poser with all due respect and in good faith. I'm just wondering, it's a claim, if him and Rachel Maddow are a married couple. Allegedly, okay? I'm saying allegedly. That's a question mark. Love and marriage, because they both think and smell the same. Crappy, all right? Well, I'll continue on here. The denunciations of President Trump from the left for pointing out this obvious fact seem to be infinite. Of course, the same people would also denounce the president if he said that Zelensky was a champion of democracy. Remember, Trump's-iety. If Trump farts, it will be headline news from the Welling Snowflakes channels, okay? But there are constitutions and there are constitutions. Just because a government's constitution allows for a dictatorship, that doesn't mean that the dictator is therefore legitimate, moral, or even necessary. and what we must obey that Constitution, as Levin, the constitutional scholar, would say. But consider this. The Soviet Union had a fine-sounding constitution that claimed to defend freedom of speech, religion, and of the press. Read it at Marxist.com. It was all a farce. Even Levin's hero, Abraham Lincoln, did not suspend elections during the war to prevent Southern independence. He interfered with and rigged them and shut down most of the opposition press, but elections were held. That was from his book, The Real Lincoln and Lincoln Unmasked. In other words, his bibliographies, you go further than just what Thomas Day and Lorenzo say. Check it out. It's good stuff. You won't regret it, my friends. Lincoln was in some ways the flip side of the Ukrainian dictator. He did behave like a dictator, even though there was no such power granted to the executive branch in the U.S. Constitution. Generations of courts historians have praised Lincoln and other presidents for exercising unconstitutional dictatorial powers. In his book, Constitutional Dictatorship, Cornell University historian Clinton Rossiter wrote that dictatorship played a decisive role in the North's successful effort to maintain the Union by force of arms. One man was the government of the United States. Lincoln was a great dictator. How interesting that a prominent historian will publicly praise the fact that Lincoln destroyed the voluntary union of the founding fathers and replaced it with one maintained by force of arms, just like, say, the Soviet Union. Oh, yeah. Ain't that great? But there's people up there have a big erection for Abraham Lincoln. He freed the slaves. Yeah, he enslaved everybody. But like I said, it's always all sides. So I'll be very fair. I did a show on it a while back when they tried to assassinate him the first time as an elected president. So I'll be fair, but there's some merit to the story here. I'll continue on. I'll say here, historian James Ford Rose wrote of Lincoln, never had the power of a dictator fallen into a safer and nobler hands. The people of the southern states during and after the war would have disagreed with that. James G. Randall, the preeminent Lincoln scholar of the last generation, wrote that if Lincoln was a dictator, it must be admitted that he was a benevolent dictator. Levin's lavish praise for the Zelensky dictatorship is reminiscent of such agitprop. If Mark Levin was an actual defender of American-style constitutional liberty, he would have denounced the grubby Ukrainian looter of the American taxpayers instead of defending and praising him. Hi, I'm Mark Levin. I will brown-nose the tyranny as long as they're on my side. He would have instead cited the famous 1866 Supreme Court case of ex parte Milligan that rebuked the Lincoln dictatorship and his arbitrary and illegal suspension of so much of the Constitution. The justice stated that the Constitution of the United States is a law for rulers and the people, equally in war and in peace, and it covers with its shield of protection all classes of men. At all times, under all circumstances, no doctrine involving more promiscuous consequences was invented by the wit of men that any of its great provisions can be suspended during any of the great exigencies of government. In other words, the Supreme Court said that it is precisely in times of war that civil liberties must be defended with special vigor. If not, then governments will be given an incentive to constantly create crises, real and imagined, as a means of grabbing more power and stealing more of the people's wealth and freedom. Levin's defense of the Zelensky dictatorship and the Ukrainian constitution itself are more in sync with the old Soviet constitution than with the American constitutional tradition. And like leftists in general, in this case, he seems to believe that the ends justify the means. Well, based on this article, can't blame him. One thing I know for sure, folks, is a lot more complex than what's been happening even during that time. All right? So I look at all sides the best I can. But Mark Levin needs a clue. He is not a great patriot. He's just an imposter as far as I'm concerned, based on his merits. I'm not afraid to call him out on it. But his shows are pretty boring anyway. He's on Fox News. So what? We need to protect the Constitution when the opposition's in there. Yeah, what's convenient for him. That's why my early rant is the same knuckleheads that all want to go Trump this, Trump that, right? You're just like Mark Levin, a herd conformist. Moo! Follow that herd, right? Go line up in the slaughterhouse. And I digress. I say that metaphorically, too. But you know what, for sure, if you don't learn from the past, folks, we're damned to repeat it. This is why I renounced funding, supporting Ukraine with foreign aid for a very long time. So I took the initiative of reading these literatures and examining, the Ukraine on fire, and of course, the Grand Chessboard. That's just part of scratching the surface. Not saying I'm an expert in Ukraine either. I'm not. But there's 1,000 years of corruption, according to some historians. And it's a real shame because the Ukrainian people are getting screwed the most. Just like what the people in Donbass. They got shafted too. They suffered as well. That's why a lot of them are next to join the Russian Federation. Go figure that one out. But Zelensky and his scumbag cronies don't want you to see it. But it's too late. They've been exposed for a very long time. It's time for Zelensky to play Songbird, then be charged for treason, and along with his associates. All right, do one more here from Mises. Came out yesterday. Nazism, Fascism, and Communism, warring sons to a common father. This is written by Amr Hossein Ajakfakrihi. Hope I pronounced the person's name correctly. Hope I do. I could make mistakes too, my friends. I admit that. So let's just read on here what this person has to say. What if two history's most infamous ideologies, Nazism and fascism, share more in common fundamentally with communism than we often recognize? Recently, a chairwoman of the German political party controversially claimed that Hitler was a communist. While the assertion is incorrect, much of the criticism it drew focused on the visible differences between Hitler and communists, leaving their deeper ideological similarities unexamined. By revisiting the words of Hitler and Mussolini, it becomes clear that their rivalry with communism was less about rejecting its principles and more about promoting competing visions of collectivism. And I know I got the thing on vibrator, and I apologize, folks. Been a while. It is now the duty of classic liberals who fundamentally diverge from both communists and fascists to seize the opportunity and reveal the shared collectivist roots of these ideologies. As a classical liberal, I have always been skeptical of my ideology being grouped on the same side as Nazis, given the stark philosophical differences, the disproportionate attention drawn to the rivalries between various forms of collectivism hinders through political discourse and leaves the core question of individualism versus collectivism inadequately explored. Mussolini from Marxist to nationalist collectivist. If the 19th century was a century of the individual, we are free to believe that this is a collective century, wrote Benito Mussolini. He began his career as an ardent Marxist, even editing a socialist magazine. However, World War I and his perceived failure of communist internationalism to galvanize workers led him to reconsider. Rather than abandoning collectivism, he sought a unifying force stronger than class nationalism. In The Doctrine of Fascism, he argued that the nation has not disappeared, emphasizing that class distinctions obstruct true unity. Class cannot destroy the nation. Class reveals itself as a collection of interests, but the nation is a history of sentiments, tradition, language, culture, and a race. It's a spiritual community. Mussolini criticized socialism not for its collectivist nature, but for its inability to unify all segments of society. He described fascism as an ideology that subsumed the individual into the state. He says here, liberalism denies the state in the name of the individual. Fascism reasserts. The rights of the state are as expressing the real essence of the individual. The fascist concept of the state is all-embracing. Outside of it, no human or spiritual values can exist, much less have value. For Mussolini, the individual had meaning only as part of the collective, bound by traditions, culture, and duty. It says here, fascism sees in the world not only those superficial material aspects in which man appears as an individual standing by himself, but the nation and the country, individuals and generations bound together by a moral law founded on duty. Hitler's vision, sacrificing the individual for the race. The Nazis developed a slogan that can be read in May 1st, 1934, New York Times article, "The Common Good Before the Good of the Individual." This Nazi slogan encapsulates Hitler's collectivist ethos. While he diverged from socialism in practice, he acknowledged the collectivist appeal of its goals. In Mein Kampf, he states, "I had no feelings of antipathy towards the actual policy of the Social Democrats. That is, a valid purpose was to raise the level of the working classes. However, Hitler's break with socialism stemmed from his perceived failure to preserve national unity and identity. He viewed socialism's internationalism as a threat to German identity, but features that contribute most of the estranged me from the social democratic movement was his hostile attitude towards the struggle for the conservation of Germanism in Austria. What set Hitler apart was an emphasis on race. His core concept of racial superiority was fundamentally rooted in collectivism, seeing the Aryan race as embodying the idea of self-sacrifice for the community. It says here, the greatness of the Aryan is not based on his intellectual powers, but rather on his willingness to devote all of his faculties to the service of the community. For the Aryan willingly subordinates his own ego to the common real, and when necessity calls, he will even sacrifice his own life for the community. Compare this to Marx's assertion that all previous historical movements were movements of minorities or in the interest of minorities. The proletarian movement is the self-conscious, independent movement of the immense majority in the interest of the immense majority. Both philosophies promoted visions of the collective good, differing only in the identity, class, or race that served as the unifying force. For Hitler, the individual existed to serve the collective, with the state as the enforcer of this vision. The state is looked upon only as a means to an end, and this end is the conservation of the racial characteristic of mankind. While he opposed Marxism's internationalism, he saw it more as a rival than a fundamentally different philosophy. He says here, only when the international idea politically organized by Marxism is confronted by the folk idea, equally well organized in a systematic way, and equally well led, only then will the fighting energy in the one camp be able to meet that of the other on an equal footing. A victory will be found on the side of eternal truth. Language matters. Although sophisticated exploration of these subjects in the literature is important, what benefit would it bring if these ideas do not reach the masses? How can we serve our passion for liberty if we fail to assert it daily through its most powerful tool, language? We should tolerate the perception that our ideology is just a matter of degree from Nazism and Fascism. Meanwhile, the most impactful irony is that these ideologies are often categorized as being on the right. Are we aware of the implications of this neglect? Or, if we are aware, have we been passionate enough to address it? What we need is an abundance of daily discourse that blends factuality with simplicity, one that consistently reinforces its implications through language until it becomes widely accepted. Conclusion. The debate over whether Hitler and Nazism belong to the left obscures a deeper truth that collectivist roots align with them more closely with communism than with individualism, classical liberalism, or libertarianism. The qualities of Hitler and Mussolini differed significantly. Their denial of individualism was philosophical, whereas their resentment of communism was more of a passionate rivalry. By highlighting the shared foundations of these ideologies through promoting alternative political categorizations, we should incorporate these facts into everyday political discourse and reestablish their significance as the only truly distinctive ideology. Recognize these less explored but fundamental common features would help societies to have a broader perspective towards political relations and avoid falling for runaway collectivist movements. Simply because they offer a new leading identity, whether defined by class, nation, race, or gender. Classical liberalism has played a background role in shaping the modern world, a world that, despite its flaws, is far removed from the hardships of earlier times. It should now become the mission of classic liberals to uncover the truth. Ooh, yeah, nicely done. Remember, folks, a lot of it's the same ordeal in a different package. So it's really nothing new under the sun when you think about it. They're all in the same brackets, right? Collectivism 101. One thing we got to learn about individuals, we like to be volunteers. We don't want to be told about what the state will have you do things peacefully, as long as we don't violate others, right? But too much of going to the state to resolve our problems becomes a broader burden. That's how I gotta look at these things. That's why when you study the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, one of our main duties is to never trust the government, regardless who's in there. So that's why I always recommend all the beautiful people that listen to the show. Be a sentinel instead of a faction slave. Observe responsibly. It's not that hard. Don't get caught in all these little political bandwagons, I call them. A lot of these movements are a joke anyway. And how many of them have been funded by USAID, right? You'd be surprised. That's why I'm not really too bent out of shape on what's going on. I'm not saying government's going to be efficient, but one thing I have to agree with Peter Schiff. A lot of things are being exposed, which is pissing people off, and it's about time. Keep them on their toes, my friends, and read much as you can, especially on these bills. It's around the world, by the way. And that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, etc. Whatever you do, please use decorum. Send it to me via email, ll3-podcast@proton.me. I'll leave the footnotes on this episode. If you want to donate, go to paypal.me or cash.app/local3. You can follow me on Steemit @LL3-Podcast. If you want to donate there via crypto, that'd be cool. I'm going to try. I know I've been saying it multiple times. Been like a days ago there to hit more donation drives. But you know what? I know I haven't been doing a lot of shows. I could try to do a little more. I'm like a lot of people out there. I'm working class. I make a living. But I haven't forgot you folks, okay? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.